Do you want more? More time, more balance, more love, more sex, more money, more real, and less bullshit? This is the Women Wanting More podcast with Dr. Karen Osborne. Real life, real stories, plus real tips to get you more of what you want.
All right, sister. So let me share with you something today. The one thing that I feel will incrementally shift things for you within your life. That if you could simply embrace this concept, that everything would begin to shift like a domino effect, right? Everything would kind of be affected from it. That if you simply not just heard the words and nodded your head and went, oh yeah, Karen, yeah, you're right or something, that you fucking embraced this shit. You lived it, embodied it, were obsessed with it. And it's on the side note of trust, but it's something that it's 4 words that is on a poster that sits inside my office. It's like a little picture of, we're going to say like a Buddha looking kind of dude. And it has 4 words up at the top of it. And on the 4 words of the poster, it says this: let that shit go. Let that shit go. And, at first I'm like, hey, I'm recording this podcast. I'm driving to school to go pick up my oldest son, Tyson. He's in grade 2. And we're going to go to soccer and pick up his little brother. And he's going to go to swimming and lots of stuff going on with his family. I got boxing. I'm like, trust. Because it is a recurring theme in my life these days with opportunities and things that are happening, and just with my husband and his business and where we want to take our marriage and our family. And it comes back to it all the time. I'll have a conversation with Ed today and the stuff that's coming up for me, and it's something that's in front of me, and I'm like, I don't know about this thing. And he's like, I hear you, babe. I would feel all these things too. You're just going to have to learn to trust. You just got to let that shit go and trust. I'm like, yeah, you are right. You are right. Sexy and smart. Yes, you are right. Yeah, let that shit go. Because I can go all sorts of stories in a fucking heartbeat. I am no different from you in many respects, sister. I've just figured some things out where I know how to recover from the shitstorm that my mind can go to. Right, that primal monkey brain that, thinks we're going to still get eaten by a saber-toothed tiger. Starts to create all this bullshit and drama and stories. And, the biggest piece of it is this, and too, sisters, you really have no fucking control. So whatever opportunity is coming into your life, whatever thing is happening, whatever somebody is doing to you, for you, saying about you, whatever thing is you will have. So, I have some women as well too that are in a group I run called the Sisterhood, which, by the way, if you're not already there, head over to drkarenosborne.com/sisterhood, and you can sign up for the first 7 days for $8, part of this beautiful group coaching program of women around the world that want power just like you. And, we talked about fear yesterday on the training. Fear of what you want in marriage, fear of what you want in business. And it's all based on these stories often of something that's happened in the past. Either it's relevant to you or someone that you know, and you've brought it, and it's like bringing the past. You're like, let me just dump this motherfucker right into the present, and I'm gonna have it affect my future. And it can have relevance, it cannot have relevance, but it is this notion of not trusting, not letting that past shit go, and saying, I'm going to see this as a blank slate. Whether it's my husband and our marriage. I'm not going to paint him with the same brush that I did for the last 10 years, because that's not getting me the outcome that I want. So what would happen if I just let that shit go? I've talked to women that have moved on and healed their marriages, even gone through affairs. One of them, both of them. And I remember thinking at one point in my life that, man, if I ever did that to Ed or he ever did to me, that would be the end of it, right? And listen, I have no plans on cheating on my husband ever. Ever, ever, ever. Or my husband on me. Ever, ever, ever. But it's made me wonder about these women that have gone through the experiences. And I don't want to say I've come out stronger, but they've truly healed through them. And I think, so we could take something like having an affair and place it in the category of just let that shit go, right? But it was like, what needed to be addressed in the marriage got addressed. What needed to be healed got healed. They're not still holding their husband hostage for that shit. Like, they were able to let that shit go. Now, that's kind of an extreme end, right? How about if it's just something with your husband about an argument you recently had or something that he said? Like, are you literally still holding on to shit? Well, you always do it this way, and you never, and why can't you, and blah, but, all that shit's getting you nowhere. Why do I know this? Because I've been there. Because I've been you. Because I've done and said all these same things. And it's gotten me not the results I want. And there's been times, too, when we still might have fights. Because, yeah, when you are married, you will collide. It's the way that it fucking works. And yet, I just asked myself that question. I'm like, Karen, is this really that important right now? Is it really important for me to hold on to this thing? Or can I maybe just let that shit go and say, you know what? I'm just going to let it go. It bothered me yesterday. I'm going to choose not to let it bother me today. Let that shit go, right? What's happening with this opportunity in front of me? Does it mean this? Does it mean that? Is this person meaning this? Are they doing this? It's like, let that shit go. Right? My sons, who can trigger me? If you're mom, this can happen. It does happen. It's real, right? It's like, Kai said what to me? He said what to me? He thinks it's funny to call everybody a butt these days. He's just kind of being a goofy 4.5-year-old boy, right? But sometimes it'll be like, butt mommy, and I'm just like, what did you say? I want to go to that place, right? I'm like, listen, am I going to do this whole thing of like, I'm the parent, you should respect me a bit? Like, that shit doesn't even roll. It doesn't work. It never worked with me when I was a kid. My parents came at me that way, right? I'm like, you know what? He's just being a goofy 4.5-year-old. I can choose to be triggered or not. I just let that shit go. I'm just going to walk away from it, put no energy to it. And then P.S. I win. I win because I get to choose my emotion. We get to choose our emotions as human beings. We get to choose to allow things to upset us or not. Nobody made you feel a certain way. No one made you do something. You're not stuck this way because that's how you were raised. Like, let's just fucking be honest about shit, sister. Come on. Let that shit go. Let that shit go. If you really fucking embody this, you can combine this with really remembering who you are. Combine this with really knowing clearly what you want and why it matters. And you take action every day, every single day. So you combine this, we're going to call it attitude, right? This attitude, this energy of just like, I'm just going to let that shit go. Now, I'm not saying don't let stuff go that's doesn't matter, right? There's something significant going on. You're like, I'm just going to let this shit go. I'm just going to breathe into it. I'm going to namaste all over it. Like that stuff's just redonkulous, right? It's like in the episode of Seinfeld where Seinfeld. Kramer was being triggered by, I can't remember what it was, and they kept saying, I can't remember how the whole episode happened, but it was called Serenity Now. So it was like, Serenity Now, Serenity Now. And then Kramer just lost his mind because he's like, Serenity Now, Serenity Now. She's just squashing down shit that's bugging him, right? Thinking if you just say those words, if you just say affirmations, if you just namaste it, put a bow on it and say, oh, it's a gift in here, but you're not feeling that in the moment, right? So feel the things you want to feel and then just be ready to let that shit go. Life is such a fucking gift. And it is full of all different emotions. Anger, envy, jealousy, sadness, joy, love, compassion, excitement, more love. It's all of it. You don't need to avoid any of it. But if it's something that's no longer serving you, need to let that shit go. So here's your more tip for today. What are you holding on to in your life right now where you just need to let that shit go? Let that shit go. That should be one of my new Woman Want to More shirts, by the way. Which, by the way, if you haven't shopped at Woman Want to More store yet, go to shop.womanwanttomore.com. Maybe I'll add that. I'll tell you what, if someone actually asks me to, I will add that as a new shirt or tank top. Let that shit go. Yep, we will do that. But you'll see as well as of other amazing t-shirts and tanks and hoodies, beanies, mugs that you can choose from. So where in your life are you not letting shit go? Okay, and here's the second piece of that. What can you do in the next 24 to 40 hours to begin to let that shit go? What's one action that you can take? And maybe it can just be like a one-shot thing, right? Or it can be something that takes several steps, but take one step towards letting that shit go. Simply because it's not moving you towards the results you want in your life. So, sister, 3 things as we end up the podcast today. Number 1, if you do not already subscribe to the podcast, do that right now on iTunes or Stitcher, wherever you're listening to this from. And to make sure to leave me a 5-star review. Now, this is not for me. Let me rephrase that. Leave the podcast a 5-star review. I appreciate the appreciation I get from so many of you each day. But this is not for me. This is for you. And leaving a 5-star review actually helps other women connect with the podcast because they're going to read that, right? They're going to read that and be like, oh my God, someone noticed this? Listen, there's so many podcasts out there in podcast world now on iTunes. Like, why should they listen to this one? So you have the ability to take, 3-4 minutes of your life, leave a 5-star, first subscribe for you, leave a 5-star review as well. Subscribe so you don't miss an episode. 5-star review is for other women. So although I'll appreciate reading it and the nice things that you might say, and thank you so much for that in advance, this is not for me. It's for other women so they can find the podcast. And you can impact another woman around the world that needs to hear this message as well. So that's number 1. Number 2, subscribe to the Women Wanting More newsletter. I'm going to send you the More for Action Guide, how to start your day in power, and 2 very intense trainings that I taught, and to remember who you are. I mentioned that earlier in the podcast, right? So those trainings are how to drop your stories and how to create new ones. And so to get those and VIP access to everything Women Wanting More, head over to drkarenosborn.com/action guide. And then number 3 was the sisterhood. I mentioned it earlier, but head to drkarenosborn.com/sisterhood. You can sign up for the first 7 days for $1. After that is a whopping $47 a month. I know, $150 a day. Are you fucking worth it, sister? I can't believe I still have some women that be like, I don't know if I can afford it. I'm like, well then you should probably need to listen to the podcast. Because you don't even fucking care about yourself if you can't invest $1.50 a day in you. Seriously. Fucking burns my ass when I get sometimes responses. I'm like, good Lord. You're fucking broke because your thinking is broke. That you don't fucking matter. But listen, outside of rant now endeth, yeah, the sisterhood is for powerful women that like you. And you need to be around women that are like you. Like, accountability is everything, and so is association. And there are weekly trainings inside that for you to really create a life of more and get everything that you really, truly want. So that's at drkarenosborn.com/sisterhood. So I will talk the next episode, sister. A life of more is just one step away from you doing the fucking work every single day. I love and appreciate you.
To get the show notes of each Women Wanting More episode, including the How to Get More tip, subscribe to the newsletter at drkarenosborn.com/newsletter.